So I've just got, obviously there's a lot of changes coming in from the 10th with the furlough scheme and things, but I've got clients that are asking a few different questions. So I just wondered if you better help me on a few.
No problem at all. Fire away. I'd love to give some answers.
What do I do if employees are refusing to return to work from furlough?
So, I mean, literally speaking, the employee is employed to work and attend work. So you've got a contract of employment with somebody and you're required to turn up under the terms of that contract. Now, normally, if you said to me, I've got an employee not returning to work or they've had a period of absence and then they're saying they're not coming back, it'd be pretty much direct, a few meetings and then thanks very much, you're no longer welcome to be employed here because you're refusing to turn up. However, we've obviously got lots of different complications going on around furlough at the moment and the coronavirus issues and shielding and childcare. So my advice is to speak to the individual and work out what their individual issues, concerns are, and make sure we've got all our best practice in place within the company. If you're following government guidelines for the safety measures and social distancing and you've got work available, then you can ask your employee to turn up, and if they refuse not to turn up, it might be that we agree a period of unpaid leave until things just finally settle down. But literally speaking, you're employed to attend work, so they should be attending.
Okay, so they've got a few that maybe, say for example, childcare issues, because not all the schools or nurseries have gone back as yet. So the employer, they can still say no.
Yeah, you can. I mean, if somebody's got childcare issues, it was one of the acceptable reasons to use the furlough scheme. However, there's lots of other alternatives that work better for the business. So if the business has got work to be done, this can be done at different hours. So if somebody normally works 9 till 5, maybe we ask them to work Saturday and Sunday because they've got childcare, maybe with a partner or relations at a weekend.
Yeah.
So again, it's down to individual circumstances. It's not a carte blanche entitlement to furlough. It's always been at the employer's discretion.
Right. Okay.
Again, you're employed to turn up to work, so we just need to understand the individual circumstances, use some holidays, use some unpaid leave for a while, see if we can work through things.
Right. So with the changes that are coming on to the job retention scheme, what if we work out that we can't afford to keep people employed? Am I able to ask my staff to take a pay cut, or for example go on to part-time hours instead of full-time hours, just to help until we get past where we're fully open again?
Yeah, both of those things, so taking a pay cut or changing hours, are a variation of contract, and we can't just vary contracts willy-nilly. We've got to talk to our employees, consult with them is the phrase, but we talk, we communicate, we explain. If it's only going to be short term, maybe people will be willing to sign a variation for a short period of time.
Okay.
If it's something that people are not willing to do, then we need to look at the circumstances of the business, and if that's about business survival, then sometimes that can still be okay to force that change through. So first of all, it's communicate and talk and try and reach agreement. And then if we can't reach agreement, that business really needs to seek some employment law, HR support and advice in terms of whether it's something that we can force a change on at this time owing to the business circumstances.
Right, okay. So would that come under another question that I've been asked is, if I've got no option but to make an employee redundant, what can I do, or what do I need to do?
So redundancy depends on the number of people involved. So if we've got less than 20 people that might be at risk of redundancy within a 90-day period, then there are no formal rules written down. It's just a case of making sure again that we consult, but by consult we mean talk, explain, give the rationale, make people aware of what's happening, where the business is, maybe some cash flow information. And then it would be a dismissal meeting though ultimately. So if we are making somebody redundant, it is a dismissal by reason of redundancy. So we need some process and some procedure in place to make sure that we're doing everything right. Now, if it's more than 20 employees, then there are some consultation regulations and rules and processes that are set down in stone and have to be followed. So for example, if it's 20 to 100 employees to be made redundant, then we may need to notify an external organisation, an authority body, and that's to be done 30 days before the first dismissal takes place. you asked about redundancy, but there is still alternatives. So we've had this furlough in place, but if we hadn't had furlough, what most businesses might have been trying to exercise at the moment is something called layoff.
All
Right, layoff is just with the statutory payment for 5 days, and then after that the layoff is without pay. So as furlough comes to an end, one short-term option for people might be a few extra weeks of layoff, and that would be an alternative to redundancy, to stop redundancy having to go ahead.
Yeah.
So again, it's about talking with employees and working out what agreements we can reach and the right things to do.
Okay. Yeah. I've got somebody that's worked for me for a long time, but obviously we've got cash flow issues because there is no income coming into the business. Do you know if there's any way that I can get help from the government towards paying the redundancy pay if I need to?
So there is something called the Redundancy Payment Service. It's called RPS, and it's part of an insolvency part of government support functions.
Yeah.
And that redundancy payment service can offer support to businesses that are struggling to pay redundancy pay. If you're solvent as a business, the terms of that support say that it would be need to be paid back, so it's kind of a loan. And it's worth inquiring. So there is the redundancy payments service. It's something that your businesses could inquire with to see if they can get some support on a loan basis.
Yeah, so that'd help with the cash flow, wouldn't it? And then the other one that's possibly going to be popping up is, what if I'm told to isolate with the new track and trace? How much pay am I entitled to?
So on the track and trace, if it's a business where you can work from home, carry on working from home, and hopefully the company and the employee will be able to agree that it's just normal pay because everything's carrying on but from home.
Yeah.
If you are in a company where you can't work from home, so manufacturing, maybe something like that, then it would be the 14-day SSP payments that were made available for self-isolation are available for this as well. So it could be SSP. Alternatively, again, if there's some holiday spare to be taken, maybe this is a time to allow employees to take a little bit of holiday.
Yeah, okay.
When you started to ask me that question, I thought you were going to ask me about the new isolation on flying into the country for a moment there.
Oh, so, yes, no, I've not thought of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our views on this at the moment, and talking to some colleagues within the HR department, the person's voluntarily left the country, so they're kind of voluntarily choosing to have to self-isolate. So we're not entirely, we're not going to advise SSP under those circumstances. It's probably time off without pay because it was a choice that individual made to put them place themselves in that position. It's not something that's been imposed upon them totally and wholly. They had the choice whether or not to leave the country and take that flight in the first place.
Yes, because don't you, that you're definitely going to have to self-isolate when you come back, because that's what you chose to do.
I mean, the guidance might change on that, and there might be something put into place to extend the SSP scheme, but it's not in the SSP scheme at the moment.
Yeah.
So again, work from home. But if you're in an industry where you can't work from home, then you put yourself in that position where you weren't allowed to come to work. So normal employment law would say you're not entitled to pay because you've done that to yourself. Yeah. I think the key thing for this week is if you thought that as a business you could access the part-time furlough scheme, which is effective from the 1st of July, you actually need to have had employees already on furlough. You can't just jump straight to the part-time furlough option. So if you've had your employees continually working, you may need to think about placing them on furlough before the 10th of June so that they qualify for the part-time furlough. If they've previously been on furlough, it looks like they'll still qualify. Even if they're back in work now, but we're still waiting for the finer details. The 10th of June is the key date there. If you thought about accessing part-time furlough, you need to be already in the furlough programme by the 10th of June.
10th of June, yeah. Like I say, that's a very important date, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that's answered all my questions, so thank you very much. And have you got a webinar?
The 17th of June, working with the Adventure programme. A lot of people have probably heard about Adventure. They help new startup businesses or businesses in the first 3 years, I think it is, with lots of management, leadership skills and training. And myself and my colleague are doing a Beyond Lockdown, how to build your best team for future success.
Thank you very much for your help, and have a good rest of the day.